What's going on, everybody? My name is Kurt, and welcome to the show. And on today's show, we're going to talk about a mind control hack that I think is really critical and helpful to actually taking control and really conditioning your mind so you can focus on what you want to focus on. Now, in last week's episode, if you didn't listen, I talked about emotional agility. Emotional agility is the idea that we can actually withstand emotions, and it's really the understanding that emotions are a natural part of being a human being, as well as how to briefly kind of go over ideas of how to kind of deal with it. Understanding all these is really a primer and a critical piece. Society and the way we live now is so different, so radically, exponentially different than the way that we evolved as a biology, that we're just not really coded to handle the things that are going on in today's world. We've been given emotions for a long time in our lives, and they're probably not going anywhere. In fact, they're biologically encoded into our DNA, and frankly, they're something we should be happy we have. They can help us a lot of times, although as entrepreneur types, generally speaking, we find that they can be a bit of a hindrance, because what they'll do is we're often pushing ourselves, and so we'll find that they're just a little bit annoying. They can be a little bit challenging because they're not always the right signal. They're not always completely accurate, but they do help. So emotional agility was the conversation we had last week about how the emotions are generated, what parts of your body and brain that they come from, and how your kind of system is hardwired with emotional signals, and really how to kind of be agile and experience the emotions, but still push forward in the face of challenge. On this episode, I want to talk about the probably the biggest hack in terms of controlling the mind and really taking charge of your direction of your thinking and focus. I think as an entrepreneur, there's a lot of decisions, especially in today's society. There's an overwhelming number of choices out there, whether it's Netflix, social media, content, business. I've mentioned this before, but I'll say it again. It's just getting more and more. And arguably, it's good to have a lot of decisions. It allows us a lot. It's a quality of life. We have so many options to do so many different things. But on the flip side, it's also adding to the stress. We're not biologically coded to deal with multiple decisions. We didn't have that many. We usually had one form of prey, maybe two, and we would go get that, or we had a predator we ran from, or we had shelter or reproduction. Like, it was a simple life for hundreds of thousands of years for our biology. And now we're dealing with a lot of emotions and choices that are kind of bogging down the system. They're just loading us. So mind control hack number one is all about directing your focus. And if you think about it, most of what your programming is unconscious programming, habits, things you've formed at an early age that you've sort of been built on. You built your hardware and your software that you operate on now as a person through the conditioning you had growing up. 90%, maybe less, maybe more, but somewhere around that point. So to change how you operate, you really have to understand how that whole biology is working and what you can do. So the hack I'm talking about is actually intention setting. Setting intentions is really what you think of when you think of how you can actually take control of your conscious focus. So we're talking about actually a sort of mind hack, a performance hack. We're talking about conscious focus, how to direct and sustain it towards an activity, a skill, a task that's going to help you really get to the bottom of what you're trying to solve, get you that sort of really nice streamlined creativity, that focus, that production that's going to get you where you want to go. So if you look at the Webster definition of what intention is, it's really just a certain determination in some way, a certain type of determination in a certain way. And when you think about setting your intention, that's really where we have the most control. So if I intend to do the dishes, I've kind of set the action in place. If I intend to read this book, I've set the action in place. Now I'm not gonna probably stay focused on the whole book. I'm probably gonna wander around, but I am gonna have some intention to start the task. But that's really where your conscious mind comes into play. And what you can do with this hack is you can learn to sort of set your intention in a purposeful way through the framework I'm gonna present here. And you can also learn to positively reinforce it so that you're consistently conditioning that part of your mind to actually allow you to be even better at setting your intention and staying more and more focused. Back up one quick step here. What happens when you set your intention? Well, if you look at the model of the mind in many different ways, there's many models out there, but if you look at the model of the mind that I'm referring to, which is largely outlined in The Mind Illuminated by John Yates, you're gonna find that the mind is naturally gonna have a tendency to wander. If you think about our biology and the way we were created as animals, we probably had a tendency and we were predispositioned to evolve and reproduce if we were able to have a wandering mind. We had to scan the environment for food, for prey, for adaptation, and if we didn't do that, we probably were gonna struggle. So for those of us that could just stare at one piece of food or stare at one object and not have any sort of distraction or wandering to kind of check for elusive prey or elusive predators, we probably didn't have as much of an advantage. But in today's society, it's way more advantageous, especially as an entrepreneur, to have focus, sustained attention. We're just not biologically really coded to do that, but you can condition yourself. So what do? Well, I've come up with a few steps that I want to recommend. So the first thing you got to do is take a specific moment to pause and define a tangible goal. Pause. Before you do something, don't just swing right into it. Just pause and define the tangible outcome you're looking to accomplish.
Got a date, Bill? Sure, don't you, Ragmuff? No.
This could be something as simple as like reading 10 pages out of a book, or something as complicated as making a phone call to save a customer.
Hey, you use water on your hair too. How come your hair looks so good?
I use Vaseline hair tonic with the water.
Step 2, you're gonna set a firm intention to diligently finish the task. Again, you're gonna set a firm intention to diligently finish the task.
Water evaporates and dries hair out. Alcohol and cream tonics evaporate too. Won't Vaseline hair tonic evaporate? Nope.
Step 3, you're gonna remind yourself of your motivation. Why am I doing this? Why is it so important? What is the deal with making this phone call to this customer? I hate him anyway. I don't want to talk to him. What's the deal? Or why do I need to read this? How does it help me? You're gonna remind yourself of your motivation.
With Vaseline hair tonic, you can use all the water you want. It replaces oil that water removes.
And lastly, you're gonna jump into it right away, as soon as you're ready. So this is like your pre-task checklist, your intention setting, motivation reminding, focused self, getting geared up to go into that task. Start building the habit of doing this. And here's what's gonna happen. As you go through this, first you wanna kind of build this framework, which I wrote out in the post. So if you go check out my writing on my website, you'll see the post under episode 13. But you wanna get through the process of actually checking this. Consciously pause, set a specific intention, remind yourself of your motivation, and then get into it. Next, you wanna realize that you're gonna fail. Okay, anything you do that's worthwhile doing is gonna be a little bit challenging at first, especially if you're someone who's kind of scattered, used to multitasking, working on multiple windows, things like that. It's gonna be a bit more challenging to kind of get focused, but it will pay off. Your creativity, your best things flow when you get into that focused, really flow state zone. And that happens when you're like really driving in and getting into it. And this is a huge hack, so really stay focused with me here. So what you're gonna do is when you do this and you get going, you're gonna find that your mind is gonna wander. When it wanders, don't stress, don't worry. Just remember to positively reinforce yourself that you're grateful that you remember that you wandered and get yourself back on task. That's all you do. So again, focus on what you're doing, positively reinforce yourself, and then jump right back to it. You don't need to go through the whole checklist again if you catch yourself wandering, unless it's a major kind of tangent, and then you're maybe tuned out for several minutes. then you might want to. But if you're just getting back into the focus of it, just jump right into the task. Don't even get too distracted with even going that far as to reset the intentions. But again, setting intentions, it's insanely powerful. And I'm gonna give credit to both Brendon Burchard, who, if you haven't checked out his book, High Performance Habits, highly recommend it, and also John Yates, Chuladasa, from the Mind Illuminated. Both of them have great tips on clarity, intention setting that really allows high performance in focus when it comes to the mind. So I hope that was really helpful. Just to recap, you're gonna set a tangible, specific outcome. You're gonna set the intention to stay purposefully and diligently on task and stay resolved to do that. And you're gonna remind yourself why you're doing it. So you have a why and you're focused with that motivation. So that's it. I hope you guys really like this episode, this tuning in. And until next time, keep on crushing.
In the bottle and on your hair, the difference is clearly there. It's clear, it's clean, it's Vaseline.